What is up, everybody? Welcome back, Fence Fam. Glad to get to talk to you guys again. Welcome back to this is our weekly Ask Me Anything Q&A session. So we've got a huge announcement coming up that we're going to talk about today. Also, I might be leaving a little bit early. These are supposed to be from 3 to 5:30, but we might be having a baby today. So it's not scheduled. The little one's not scheduled to be here till January 4th, but during a doctor's visit today, the wife was talking with the doctor, and they did some stress tests and all the things that baby doctors do, I guess. And she's been having some contractions off and on, which is normal, I suppose. But the doctor said, well, if you have more than 6 or more contractions in an hour, you should probably give us a call, and we'll probably have you come in. Just make sure everything's going okay and all that. Well, so about 5 minutes before this broadcast, I get a text that said, I've had 7 contractions within an hour. We might be going to the hospital. So, yeah. So maybe it's, I don't think it's baby day, but maybe it is. So maybe maybe we're adding to the Fence Fam a little bit early here today. We'll see. So I might have to cut this off early. I got the phone ready to go. I told her, I said, hey, we're going to do this Facebook Live. Ask me anything. But let me know if I need to go. I'm sure the Fence Fam will understand, and I will rush right over. So it's an exciting day. So that's going on. Let's see who's checking in here. Chad, how are you doing? Raleigh area. So actually, I was born in Raleigh. My family lived in Cary, right outside Raleigh. There by what was that called? It was Big Oak. No, not Big Oak Mall. There's a big mall there. Had a huge oak. I think it's an oak tree right out in front of it. Massive thing. I heard later on after I moved, it got struck by lightning or anything. But anyway, welcome, fellow North Carolinian. Troubleshooter says, young business owner advice. Absolutely. Post up your questions in the comments below. I'd love to be able to help you with business advice for a young business owner. I'd love to hear that. What is up, Jesse? James Morales, welcome from Houston, Texas. Hope it's nice and warm down there. It's a little bit chilly here in Southwest Missouri. Today was like in the 30s and 40s, I think. So a little cooler than we'd like, but yeah. What is up, Bobo's in Denver? So I actually have a friend that's just outside Denver right now, and they've been getting a ton of snow, so I'd assume Bo is also in the snow. St. Louis Mo, welcome, fellow Missourian. I'm actually down in Springfield, Missouri, so about 3 hours from you. Always good to talk to fellow Missourians. Welcome. Chad, thank you. Well, it might be a little bit early for congrats. We don't know yet. I'm always I'm checking the phone just to make sure. But thank you. I appreciate that. Pittsburgh, what is up? Pro Builder Trust. I love that name. Welcome. Fence Prince, Dylan Blanc's here. Checking in for Fence King. I love it. Welcome, guys. Welcome. What is up, Sean, Mr. Fence himself? So, Sean, if you Fence guys, you guys all know Mr. Fence, obviously, but I am really interested in watching what he's up to. So they were driving Postmaster regular post, the original Postmaster post yesterday, and it struck up kind of a nice conversation last night talking about drivers. I'd asked in the group about who uses what drivers for the Postmaster Plus post. My understanding is that the Postmaster originals are out there still, but they're not making them anymore. So once they run out, they run out. So we went ahead and switched over early to the Postmaster Plus just so my guys can get trained on them and it's not a big surprise mid-season. But yeah, so thank you, Sean, for sharing that. I was really, I'm really interested in that. It struck up a lot of good conversations. What is up? Yep. Mr. Fence. Love it. I appreciate that, but I do want to let you guys know, if we cut it short, what's going on. All right. So, hey, I like this. This guy knows what's going on. That's right. Go Cardinals. I am a huge Cardinals fan. So we're located here in Springfield, Missouri. So we're actually a Farm League affiliate, AA affiliate we've got the Springfield Cardinals here, and they're one of the few minor league teams, I guess, that is directly owned by their major league affiliate. So we get to see a lot of the guys down here. Obviously, not this year, but in normal years, we get to see Yachty comes down if he needs to rehab, or Carpenter comes down and throws a little if he's working on something. So we are huge Cardinals fans here. Appreciate that, Fred. All right, so let's go back up. We got some questions coming in. I like it already. Oso says, would you recommend vinyl fence? Why or why not? Here's the thing: is as a company, we currently don't install a lot of vinyl fence for a few reasons. One is there's a couple companies in town that specifically install vinyl fence. They specialize in vinyl fence. So they bring in truckloads of it, and the blanks, they cut them themselves, they route them themselves, and then they're also an installer. So they're an installing dealer, I guess you would say. So for us to try to compete with that wouldn't make a lot of sense. From a quality perspective, there's a lot of quality vinyl brands out there. You just have to do your homework. This isn't probably the show to talk about which brands are or are not, I don't know, good or bad brands. Because here's the thing: is fence guys are like a lot of other guys. If you ask, it's going to turn into like a Ford, Chevy, and Ram conversation where you got guys that have brands that they love. If you ask a Chevy guy, the Chevy truck's the only truck, and Fords and Rams just aren't worth buying. So you probably have a similar conversation regarding just the many brands of vinyl. Would you recommend vinyl fence? Vinyl fence is a great solution in the right instances. So now here's the thing. So they promote the vinyl industry, being they here, promote as being a maintenance free. Not maintenance free, but what would you call it? Well, not maintenance resistant, I guess. It's a low maintenance fence. So, and here's why. There's a little bit of maintenance in that. Algae loves growing on the north side of vinyl fences. Actually, on the north side of any sort of vinyl structures. And well, I guess that's not fair. You see it on the north side of brick houses too, I guess. But I think about vinyl siding. You see algae growing on vinyl a lot. It loves to grow on vinyl. So now the maintenance isn't huge, right? So it's spraying on an algicide in the spring to kill whatever has grown during the fall and winter and early spring months, and then you're on your way. But we're not talking about rot. We're not talking about insect infestation. We're not talking about just natural degradation of the product. I like vinyl concept. I really do. I like the vinyl concept itself. We just never have been set up with the facilities to custom route vinyl. That's going to change soon, and we're going to talk about that announcement here in a little bit. But as of right now, yeah, I mean, in the right instance, vinyl fence does very well. It's expensive and it's hard to get right now. We'll also probably talk about it if we make it that far. I'd like to talk about the steel increase that we're starting to see in the fencing industries. The steel side of the fencing industry is catching on to the treated pine and the cedar, redwood, what those guys are up to. So prices are going up there. Vinyl's doing the same thing. Everyone uses the COVID excuse. I don't want to say excuse, but reasoning that prices are going up because demand has gone up and supply can't keep up, and on and on. I like vinyl fence. We just aren't an installer of it right now. All right. Pro Builder Trust says, when installing a fence, pickets, wood, should it touch the ground or be off the ground? It should be off the ground in general, right? So in general, it should be 1 to 2 inches off the ground is where we like to see it. Now, could it be more or less depending on terrain? Sure. But typically, I like to see it an inch or two off the ground. Still lets grass grow up to cover underneath the fence. That way it's not unsightly, but it's not constantly wicking the moisture up from the ground. Also, a little bit. So last week, we talked a little bit on the live about rot, where, post rot, wooden post rot is usually a result of the wood being in contact with the soil, being in the aerobic zone of the soils, to where all the bacteria and all the goodies that are in the dirt, all the live things in the dirt, start feeding on it. So pickets are going to be much the same way. I like to see them be an inch or two off the ground, just to prevent rot and insects. All right, listen, Dylan. I think the future fencer out there is going to look good in orange. Ozark fence orange is what I'm talking about. Do we have a onesie that says Ozark fence? Yes, of course we do. It's on deck and ready to go at all times. Was up Fred Blake Spy, a family that live in the Alton area. Very cool, very cool. Welcome. Thank you for checking in. Chad says we're putting in 430 feet, which is a significant amount of 6-foot shuttle box fence. In regards to posts, there's much discussion about rot. Right. We have sandy soil, old tobacco field. Sure. Should we seam it up to the ground or 4 inches below grade? Yeah. So this is always I don't want to say debate, but it's always heated discussion. I did a review video on a gentleman that he actually extended the cement above grade. I think he did it 4 to 6 inches using a sonotube. Not a great look. Not a great look. My problem with leaving cement at grade is that it's unsightly. No one really wants to see, a 12-inch diameter mound, not mound, but 12-inch diameter disc of concrete around their post. One thing I would recommend is, so there's a company called Post Saver. They make a sleeve that goes around the post, and it's you use a heat source such as a torch to basically shrink wrap this thing onto the post, and it sits above and below the aerobic zone of the soil that prevents the rot. It prevents exactly what we're talking about, but you don't have to then bring the concrete up to the surface, up to grade. You can leave the concrete below grade. You can fill in with soil. The soil then grasses over eventually, and it looks great. You only see your post. You don't see a disc of concrete. The product's Post Saver. You need to Google it. I want to say last time we were talking about this, it came up that they're available through Home Depot. I don't know that for a fact, though. I know Stand Still Experts out of Nashville carries it. I think they're the United States distributor for Fence Armor and Post Saver sleeves. So you might reach out to them. A quick Google would likely put you on them. But that's what I would recommend, Post Savers. Where to send fence pictures? We have a Facebook group. So you can search Facebook for The Real Joe Everest, and you will come up. Actually, let me do this. Let me drop it in the comments below. So we're going to say it's facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. There you are. So, the YouTube community doesn't let us interact back and forth. It'll let me create community posts that then you guys can comment on, but it doesn't let you guys interact directly with me. It's kind of a one-way street. But the nice thing about the Facebook group, it's public. It's open to anybody. You can drop pictures in there, videos. You can message the page and it comes to me, that sort of thing. That's probably the best way. We ought to set up I need to talk to Jeremy about this. We need to set up, we have a URL for the show. We just need to set up an email address on that. All right. So for 4x4x8 line posts, is 50 pounds of fast setting concrete enough? No, I wouldn't. So you'd want to be around 100 pounds. So we'll use a bag and a half of 80-pound mix. So quick math tells you that's about 120 pounds per post. You could do, I would like to see 80 to 100 pounds. And the reason I say 100 pounds, so you're talking about 50-pound bags, the red bag of Quickcrete probably, or the fast-setting Sackcrete usually comes in 50-pound bags. I do 2 bags a post. My opinion is you don't want to have to go back later. So the second bag per post, does it double the amount of concrete? Yes, but you're done with it. You don't have to go back and redo it. That would be how I would prefer to do it. Like I said, we use a bag and a half of 80 pounds per post, 2 bags on a gate post. We use a lot of concrete, but we don't have to go back for leaning posts either. Pro Builder Trust, how do you make sure the 4x4 posts are evenly spaced? Do you constantly measure before pouring concrete, or what do you do? Yeah, so we've got this on I'm looking at our whiteboard. We've got it on our list of videos to do. We ran out of time in the summer, because any of you guys that build fence know that summer is absolutely the craziest time. So then to try to do YouTube content on top of that gets a little bit hairy. It is on our board, but we've kind of run out of decent weather. But fence layout. So what we would do actually, Mr. Fence, who's here, Mr. Fence Tools has a really nice tool that it's an elastic band. Might would probably be the best term for it. It's a rugged, heavy duty band, but when you stretch it out, it stretches out to 8-foot centers. Or if you let it relax, it relaxes to whatever even increments are for your post spacings. So that's how we would lay it out. That's how we'd mark it. And then we'd measure each post before we set it. So we're digging 10 to 12 inch holes anyway. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room there. We want to make sure we center them when we dig them so that we have the most room back and forth. But then, we use a jig. So the Postmaster Plus posts, they've got a 2-inch hat is what they call it, but it's a 2-inch gap in between one 2x4 and the other 2x4. Now there's flanges you bolt into and all that, but you got 2 inches that is going to mess with your layout a little bit. So what we do is we use what Sean yesterday, I think he called it a story stick. I like that term for it, but basically it's it's an 8-foot. We use a 1.5 by 1.5 steel square tube. But we'd set one post that's just cut at 8 foot exact, which is what our 2x4 8s are cut out. And then we would set this, square jig against the post on one side, and then try to account for terrain, and that tells us where to set the next post. You could use a 2x4 8. You'll have them there on site likely anyway, so you could use one of those to do your layout. But 8 foot on centers generally. It's actually 8 foot 1.5 centers with the Postmaster Plus because at 8 foot 1 inch, because I think they're exactly 2-inch hats. So 8 foot 1 centers get you pretty much spot on. But yeah, we definitely double check before pouring the concrete because that could get a bit messy. I'm doing metal adjusted gate frames for gates for the 10 or 12 foot double gate. Should we do 4x6 or 6x6 gate post? 10 or 12 foot long. How much cement for a gate post? 120 pounds or 150 pounds. So I'd answered that, I believe. So we use 2 bags, 160 pounds on the gates. I like that you're using the metal frames, the adjusted gate frames. Those are nice. I would keep it to 10 foot. The larger gate you get, the incrementally larger gives you incrementally larger problems. The larger the gate, the more headache, basically. So I would keep it to 10 foot. Now you ask 4x6 or 6x6. We actually prefer steel posts on the gate frames. We used to use 6x6, so those are sufficient. The problem is it's a wood post, whether it's a treated pine or a cedar or a redwood or whatever. It's a wood post, so it's going to twist. It'll warp or twist a bit. Even cedar and redwood will do that too. So they'll move a little bit, which means it's going to make your gate lose adjustment. You'll have to adjust it later on. Typically it's when the seasons change. So in the spring, after the wintertime, you'll have to adjust it. And then typically in the fall, after the summertime, you'll need to adjust it again. We use steel posts so that steel posts obviously aren't going to warp, twist, any of that. But if you're stuck on using wood post, which can work, you just need to plan for the adjustments. I would do a 6x6 post. What process would you use if you needed to set posts in an existing concrete patio or driveway? Drill, saw, jackhammer. So we use steel post. So we would just plate a 6x6 steel plate onto that steel post, and then use concrete anchors, wedge anchors to affix that plate to the concrete surface. I always get nervous when we're talking about core drilling concrete, because you don't know how that concrete was laid, and typically you might know how old it is, but you don't know what the craftsmanship that went into this concrete. So it's going to be easy to chip it or crack it, and then as soon as you're the one drilling that, it's your fault, irregardless if it were you hit a weak pocket in the concrete or what. It'll be your fault. So typically we like to use a 6x6 steel plate, because then we can use concrete wedge anchors, which just need a smaller hole, a smaller chance that the concrete's going to chip or crack. Type of fasteners or screws for attaching 5/8 Western red cedar to 14 gauge mild steel tubing. So we don't actually attach the pickets directly to the steel. What we typically do, so we do this on gates, which is what it sounds like Jesse's up to here, is which is smart. You got a steel frame gate, but you want to attach the pickets to it. So we actually bolt 2x4s to that steel gate frame, mostly for aesthetics, just because we need another 1.5 inches off that gate frame so that the pickets will line up with the rest of the fence, so that when you're standing outside and you're looking at this line of fence, it looks like a nice straight line of fence. So we'll actually drill and bolt with galvanized bolts, 2x4s to the metal frames, and then the pickets are attached to the 2x4s, with a standard galvanized ring shank nail, which is what our standard is. I've seen guys use galvanized self-tapping screws to go directly from a picket to the steel gate frame. My concern there is that then it's going to look inset, so by about 1.5 inches. Now, will anyone ever see it? I don't know. Probably not, but I'll see it. Every time I drive by that house, I'm going to look and I'm going to see it. So for my peace of mind, we like bolting on 2x4 and just nailing indirect. We had the option to rent a groundhog towable hydraulic 8-inch auger or a Dingo 427 10-inch auger for about 60 post Dingo. We've used a groundhog. Actually, I think we still probably have a groundhog in our parts graveyard. We bought 2 of them and then used one until it kind of gave out, and then used it for parts on the second one. But I think the second one gave out several years ago, and now it's sitting in our parts graveyard, just slowly rusting away. It's a good machine. Don't get me wrong. The Dingo 427 is going to have more torque. So I believe the 427 comes with the diesel option. If you have the gas versus diesel, get the diesel. The extra torque is absolutely worth it. And you can use a Dingo to also move around job site materials. So go ahead and get the forks with it as well. You can move around your concrete. You can move around pickets and rails, that sort of thing. Where the groundhog's really a one-trick pony as far as digging holes, and it does dig in okay soil. When we start hitting thicker soil or rocky soil, it starts to lag a little bit. Let me grab a drink real quick. I would say this is not a sponsorship. I'm just a little bit thirsty. I need to do what Roger Wakefield does. Guys, if you don't know Roger Wakefield, you got to search him here on YouTube. He's actually kind of, you'd say, my mentor, I guess, in all things YouTube. He's a plumber out of Texas. He's the expert plumber, Roger Wakefield, and his channel is incredible. A lot of great content. They're up to a lot of good stuff over there. He's got, of course, expert plumber cup. I need to get a fence expert orange cup, of course, and to have some water on board at all times, because you get a little thirsty talking for a couple hours. All right, let's see here. Yep, bingo. That's it. Jack, thank you so much. That's exactly. I'm just getting caught up on the comments. So let's see. That was a little while ago that comment was made. So yeah, post saver sleeves is absolutely where it's at. Yeah, Chad, you're very welcome. So Facebook groups, fencing Facebook groups can be hit or miss. Just depends. I'm in a few of them that are really constructive, and it's guys helping guys out. There's a few of the fence Facebook groups out there that are not as constructive with their criticism. So, yeah, I love helping as much as I can. So, Chad, as you have more questions, even if it's after this live, I do live broadcast every Thursday from 3 to 5:30 Central Standard Time. I'd be more than happy to help however I can. Of course, we also have content, new videos come up every Wednesday morning. You can always leave a comment in one of those. I'm always happy to help as much as I can. And today, we'll go as long as we can. We'll check our notifications real quick. No notifications from Mama Bear right now, so we'll go as long as we can today. Let's say that, or 5:30, whichever comes first. Very welcome. We're trying to help as much as possible. Yeah, you know what, Sean? I love this. I absolutely love this interactive content. This is actually today's, how this has been going is exactly how I envision this Ask Me Anything, weekly series going. I'd love to answer as many of these questions as I can. I like to try to be as helpful as possible, which I see Sean doing it, daily in the Facebook group. So I'm just trying to be as helpful as possible. So Chad, you can reach out to the HOA. So HOAs are always different, and I say this as a guy that sits on an HOA board. A lot of times they'll allow equivalent or betters. So a lot of times HOA committees will have architectural committees, which is actually where I sit on, and we'll approve or betters. It's not in the covenants and restrictions, because the covenants and restrictions in our neighborhood is written that the board and its committees have final say. So even though the wording is very vague, or it might request wood post in your covenants and restrictions, the committees typically have final say, so they can approve or betters. I would recommend reaching out to them and just say, hey, the covenants and restrictions are requesting wood post. I'd sure like to upgrade these to a steel post, whether it's Postmaster, Lifetime, etc. You can hide these posts, right? So I'd like to upgrade to a steel post that has a lifetime warranty. My neighbors won't see it. I won't see it. I'll be able to cover up, and it'll be a better looking fence long term. Shoot them the web address of whichever post that you're looking at so that they can get a little bit more information on the post. I'd be willing to bet, if your committee is like ours, that they would allow that exception. What is the best way to make sure the top of the pickets are consistently straight down the fence? So having a jig. Again, Mr. Fence Tools has one. I'm not sponsored by these guys, but they make some really great tools. So basically what we do is, our jig's a little bit different than Mr. Fence Tools, but typically what it does is it's got one leg that sits up off, if you have your top two before, it sits up off 6 inches. So we like the tops of our pickets to be 6 inches above that two before, the top of the two before. So it has a leg that keeps the top of this jig 6 inches above the two before, and then it's a flat rectangle. It's an 1.5 inch squared tube 2 times, so it's 1.5 inches tall, 3 inches wide. It sits 6 inches above where those pickets sit. So the pickets always sit 6 inches above. You can tap them up to the top, one nail in the picket. Now, this is where Sean and I kind of differ. I like Sean's reasoning on, he did some content on pickets where he doesn't level the pickets to themselves. He doesn't run a level on the pickets. He keeps them consistent with, it's not level, it's plumb. Okay. So he doesn't plumb them with his level. He plumbs them to the post, which makes sense. When he said that, I thought about it for a little while, and it really does make sense. We plumb them to a level. So one picket goes in the nail. It hits the top of this jig. One picket goes in the nail. We plumb it with a level. The rest of the nails go in. And we use a level about every 4 or 5 pickets. But yeah, a jig makes sure that you're always ever 6 inches above that top rail. The top rail is where you get your straight line in this scenario, right? So the top rail is typically 6 inches below. So it's at 66 inches. And we sight down the two before. So we'll look straight down that two before, the one that's already screwed on. So start at your end post, and then the next two before, we'll have one guy sighting it in, and he'll say higher or lower. It starts at 66 inches, higher, lower, higher, lower, higher, lower, so that we can try to accommodate for terrain without it looking like a roller coaster. But using a tool, we use a jig. Mr. Fence Tool sells a tool for that too. There's a big difference. Is there a big difference between pre-mixed back concrete or making your own from a cost perspective? So making your own typically saves a little bit of money. When I was a kid working through high school, we mixed our own. So we would buy the ingredients independently and then mix our own in a truck-mounted cement mixing barrel, and then dump it into a wheelbarrow, wheel it over, dump it in the holes. It does save you money, but it is a hassle, and makes an incredible mess. By the time you spend time cleaning up after that situation, after you take time sourcing the materials independently, it's probably a wash on the cost savings, honestly. And the trouble with mixing your own is you're never exactly sure that you have the same proportions of ingredients in hole 1, 17, 32, and 61. the proportions of the contents can be different in every single hole. I like premixed bags. They're easier to transport. I don't have to worry about a mess, cleaning up a mess underneath the mixing barrel, and I don't have to worry about proportions. All the proportions are pre-done. The bag has everything you need. Just add water, So I like premix. I'm a really big fan of premixed concrete. But from a cost perspective, mixing your own on the face of it does save you money until you start adding in the hassle of the whole thing. And then I think it's a wash. All right. One side of Chad's fence is going to be about 5 feet from evergreen stumps, 15-foot high trees we just cut down. Would you expect to have issues with a lot of roots? Yeah, probably. Yeah, the dingo is going to help cut through those roots. Yeah, if you're only 5 foot off a stump and they're 15-foot trees, I'm not a botanist or an arborist. I don't know a ton about trees, but the root ball, what is this, guys? The root ball is typically, is it 1.5 times the height? I think that's right. I think it's 1.5 times the height is the root ball diameter. Is that right? So if it's a 15-foot tree, I don't know. Yes, 5 foot off that stump, you will hit roots. So again, a dingo would be a really great choice for you, Chad. I was referring to what type of screws attaching from cedar to metal rails on a fence panel. Example, metal fence pickets with wood in between the pickets. Jesse, I'm trying to picture what we're talking about here. Attaching the cedar to metal rails on a fence panel. Example being metal fence pickets with wood in between the pickets. I heard not to use galvanized. We use galvanized all the time. A lot of guys use stainless, and that's absolutely fine. It's just stainless nails for us are 4 times the cost of galvanized, and I haven't seen. We don't see the staining on boards that a lot of guys show in these Facebook groups. They say that they're galvanized, and galvanized is interacting with the wood, whether it's interacting, I guess, with the treatment in treated pine, but they show them on cedar pickets too. So they're saying that there's a chemical reaction that goes on between the nails and the board, and then as it rains, that chemical reaction seeps out. I haven't seen it. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I absolutely understand. But in hot dip galvanized ring shank nails that we use, I don't see it. Yeah, but I mean, you can't go wrong with stainless steel either. If it's a small project and you can do the quick math on it and realize that, if you're going to have $20 in galvanized screws, that, spending $80 isn't that crazy, then absolutely fine. I mean, stainless steel would probably be the way to go, honestly. Chad ordered, we just ordered the 18-pack sample from Stainless Steel Experts. Love all the recommendations. Yeah, so that's actually a really good point, Chad. And this is something that they've recently, I don't want to say just rolled out, but they recently rolled out the sample packs. I like this idea a lot. That way you can see exactly what color we're talking about when we say chestnut, right? Which is one of their colors that I like a lot. We offer 3. We offer cedar tone, chestnut, walnut, in stock, ready to go. And then, of course, any of their other 18 as needed. They're super great about shipping very quickly. So typically anything we need on short notice, we can get within a few days. But yeah, check out cedar, chestnut, walnut, my top 3. But yeah, the 18-pack lets you see exactly what the colors are, and everyone's eyes detects colors differently. So, I was listening to a podcast, it was a while ago, and it made so much sense. It was I think it was a TED Talk, actually, and it was talking about everyone's eye is individual and unique to them in regards to the colors they see, which is kind of mind-blowing, right? So your brown and my brown could be completely different in regards to like the way we're seeing it. Now, we can agree that this shade is called chestnut, and you could look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that shade is called chestnut. Like we can put labels on colors, but I don't know, the shades that you're seeing are different than the shades I'm seeing. So when I say that I love chestnut, when your eye looks at chestnut, you go, I don't know, I kind of prefer pecan. absolutely fine. And so that anyway, that's what that 18 pack helps with. You ever build decks too, or strictly fences? Just fences, Eric. We stick strictly to fences. You see a lot of, not a lot, but you see some fence guys that get into decks. You see some landscapers that get into fences and decks. You see some deck companies that get into fences. We've got one here locally that is kind of on again, off again fences, and they're back on again with fences for now. They've made a really great name for themselves on decks, so it stands to reason that I guess that they can build fences too. So, but no, we just stick with fences. Jack of all trades is a master of none, sort of thing. What's the best place for a farm fence, Corey? I honestly don't know. We don't install agricultural fencing. We stick with residential, commercial, a little bit of highway fence, not a lot. So we don't do any agricultural fence. I wouldn't know even where to start with farm fence. But there are, if you Google, or not Google, if you do a YouTube search for art, do this. Do a YouTube search for fall fence forums. It originally started out as agricultural, but this year, and I found out about this too late this year. I've never gone before because my understanding was, and it was started out as primarily agricultural fencing. But as I'm watching the videos from this year's fall fence forums, Sean and his guys were there, and they were doing a tremendous amount of vinyl, chain link, and wood. But they do a ton of agricultural fencing. So that would be where I would start when we're talking about bracing, because in this year's in the videos I've seen from this year, you have several teams that were competing in this that use different bracing techniques. So fall fence form. I would YouTube search that and buckle up and prepare for watching a ton of content, because those guys put out a ton of great content. What fence? MrFenceTools.com. Yep, you bet. Sean, if you're here, the fence, Sean, Mr. Fence was here. Not Fence King. Mr. Fence was here. Yeah, I believe that's right. MrFenceTools.com is the site. Sean, if you're here, just drop the URL. Oh, okay. Here we go. So now we're getting into some fun conversations, right? Worst experience with a customer. And then then we talk about oh, wait. The worst experience with a customer as far as them being too picky or overbearing. Kevin, we all have, where do you want to start? We all have, days worth of these stories, right? Here's the thing is what I might feel is too picky or overbearing is different than you. And the part that I try to stop and consider and think about is, this issue is a very real issue to them, right? This is a very big issue, or else they wouldn't be making such a fuss about it. Yeah, I mean, you get in. So on wood, we've had customers that want every board to look the same. Well, we use Western red cedar. When we're using cedar, we use Western red cedar, and every board is going to look different. Now, a lot of them look similar, but they're going to look different. And so you get the customer that says, well, I don't like this board, that board, this board, that board, and those boards because they look different than all the rest. Well, the problem there is the boards I bring out very well could look different than the rest. And the thing is here too, is they're all going to look different as they age. So I could bring out a few boards that look perfectly fine right now, and you agree that they look like all the rest of the boards. And then you call me in 6 months and say, wait a minute, I need you to come out here and replace this board, that board, this board, that board, and those boards, because now those ones look different. It's a natural product. They're going to look different. If you wanted something that looked exactly the same, you should have gotten, a treated pine fence. I guess all those boards look pretty much the same. Or you could have gone with composite. We don't install composite, but I'm sure someone would if you asked them to, if you paid them enough. Those boards all look pretty consistent. I like the fact that they look unique. So I guess if it's not necessarily one story in particular, Kevin, but that would probably be my most frustrating experience when we're talking about particular customers being a little bit too particular, is complaining about boards not looking the same. And that's kind of the point. That's what I tried to explain. It's like you don't want all the pickets to look the same. You really don't. Corey, thank you. I appreciate you guys. That's the thing is you guys make this thing enjoyable. You guys make this 2.5 hours enjoyable and useful. You guys kind of guide me down the path of what information you'd like and how I can best help and serve you guys. So and also I don't take praise very well. So I'm going to say, Corey, no, thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. What do I think about pine fence? Okay. I think it is a good value proposition when it's priced according to its quality. And what do I mean by that? So I hesitate because pine gets a bad rap, right? Because it warps and it twists. The treatments that they're using now, the ACQ, the MCQ, and I'm sure there's others out there in the market, don't perform as well as ACQ or CCA used to in the past. CCA was a really robust treatment. It was a strong treatment. It resisted rot for years and years and years. We're still removing fences today that were installed 35, 40 years ago with CCA treatment that are just now starting to fail for rot. Well, and then we're ripping out fences. We're ripping out one next week, actually, that it was a treated pine fence that was installed roughly 6 years ago. So it would have been either the ACQ or the MCQ. It was after the CCA has been, I don't know if outlawed is the correct term. You can still use it in correct situations. I believe right now the only situation for CCA, or one of the only situations, is like ocean piers. You can use it for direct saltwater application for piers and docks and that sort of thing. But anyway, for fencing, 6 years ago, the only options were going to be the alternatives, the ACQ, the MCQ, and so they're rotting a lot faster than the CCA did. I don't think that's a good solution. I don't. But when it's priced accordingly, so we offered treated pine for quite a while. This week we started the conversation back up of so when the supply went down or went away completely and the pricing shot through the roof, where in some cases treated pine was priced higher than cedar, we kind of made the group decision that we were going to offer cedar only on steel post. Meaning a cedar post, a cedar rail, or a steel post, cedar rail, cedar picket. It's the highest quality materials we have access to. Can we start a debate on cedar versus redwood? Sure. I just don't have experience with redwood. I've talked to other fence guys that love redwood fence material. I've never used it. So I wouldn't be able to have an intelligent conversation or argument discussion about cedar versus redwood. But for us in our market, cedar on steel post is the highest quality. Well, we're starting to have the conversation. We started to have it this week when the pine wholesalers got back a hold of us and said that the pricing was coming back down. Now, here's the problem: is it's still number 2. Before, when we were installing treated pine, we'd use number 1. It's the highest. I guess number 1 clear would be the highest, but you rarely see that in fencing material. Number 1 is the highest quality we have ready access to. Right now, so the wholesaler called and said, "Hey, I'd like to shoot you guys some pricing if you'll still talk to me," because we had some disagreements in the beginning when prices were going through the roof and orders were they weren't getting canceled. The delivery dates were just being pushed out by like 7 or 8 months. Yeah. So anyway, he said, if we're still talking, if we're still on talking terms, could I shoot your pricing? Sure, that's fine. So the prices have started coming back down. So right now, we can buy a 4x4x8 treated pine post number 2, but we can buy it roughly at half the price of a steel post master post. Okay, so that's probably more in the realm of where it should be. I think it's still probably a bit overpriced because I look at it from the value proposition, right? So will this fence, if I know a steel fence post will last 40 years, well, will wood fence posts last 20 years? No, probably not. So half the price is probably still a little overpriced, but at least it's getting back in the ballpark. So right now, we're looking at being able to offer a more value priced fence. There's just not a great way to term these fences, right? Because we know they're lower quality, but they're significantly less expensive. So, if we have customers that simply can't afford a cedar fence, but we stick to our guns and we say cedar is the only thing we'll install, well, they will go somewhere else and have someone else install them a treated pine fence. And what I don't like to see is people will be taken advantage of, right? So you're seeing guys that'll charge for a treated pine fence a little less than what we're charging for a cedar steel post, which it should be. It won't be half because we're still using the same labor, still using the same equipment, still have the same overhead, but it should be significantly less expensive. So in those terms, I think people are being taken advantage of. So we're starting to have the conversation. Do we offer treated pine fence again now that supply has started leveling out and pricing has come back down? Sure. But the part that makes me nervous is, everyone's talking about that there could be a second shortage of lumber. And I think that part of the time this turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think if people say it enough, it happens. Whether or not it was going to happen, whether or not it should have happened, it happens. I think we're seeing that in steel right now. So I think we're seeing that in the price of chain link, and we could talk about that later. I know we're getting a little bit off subject, but I'll wrap this up. What do you think about pine fence? If it is priced according to its quality, meaning it's significantly less expensive than a cedar fence on cedar picket, cedar rails on steel posts, I think there's a place for it. As long as the conversation is up front with the client and customer, that there is no warranty here. We'll warranty the labor for life. We offer lifetime labor warranties. If we do our job right, we shouldn't have a labor issue, period. But when we're talking about material warranties, there's not a material warranty on treated pine. That's one of the reasons I like using the Alta brand Western Red Cedar. They offer a 15-year warranty on their pickets. Not a lot of wood suppliers or wood mills in general offer warranties at all. So the fact that they offer a 15-year warranty, I like that a lot. But yeah, as long as the conversation's up front with the customer about the quality, and as long as they're given the option of a higher quality fence, I think it's okay. As long as it's priced according to its quality. Yeah, want them all the same color. So this is referring to the clients that are a little bit too particular. This happens. I bet it happens twice a year. To where now, we try to vanguard this in the very beginning when we're setting expectations. When we're talking about our schedule, when we're talking about how long we'll be on site, what they can expect to see while we're on site, why it's not all done in the same day. It's also that, hey, listen, we're also talking about a natural lumber product, and they're not all going to look the same. And I really need you to be okay with that before we move forward to scheduling this. If you'd like, you can come by our office. We keep a stockpile of a pretty decent inventory of these cedar pickets, and we can pull through 4, 5, 6 of these pickets at random and let you see, kind of what the variance looks like there. But before we move forward, I need you, and we need to talk about this, and I need you to be okay with it. But even still, once or twice it comes up. They want them to be all the same color. So, Nick, this exact conversation came up last night in the Fence Professionals Facebook group because I asked who uses post drivers for Postmaster Plus Post. It's a concept that I'm incredibly interested in and that we'll be testing out this winter. Rhino came out really, really well reviewed. Sean over at Mr. Fence uses it to drive his post. I've seen a lot of guys use Rhinos. Skydrill is how I've heard it pronounced. I've also heard guys pronounce it Skidrill. I think I've always heard it Skydrill. Ready. So the Ready drivers, there were 3 or 4 guys in this conversation that were just sold on Ready drivers. I haven't personally used it. I've used a Rhino. I also talked to the Skydrill reps at Fence Tech last year, so not 2020, but 2019. Great guys, and it looks like some beefy product, right? So, gasoline powered. I mean, I would go Rhino. If I was going on my experience right now, we've used Rhino for driving temporary fence posts around construction sites. I think they work well. Typically, they have a Honda engine. I like Honda engines a lot. They are efficient and they last forever. And when they break, they can generally be fixed relatively easily. Everyone has parts for them. So, yeah, Rhino. A second place would be Skydrill. Maybe it's a tie for Ready because the guys that are talking about these Ready drivers loved them. How far out from Springfield will you guys go to build fence? Does it just depend on the job? Yeah, so we have a rule of thumb, right? So 45-minute drive time is kind of where we're at. That hits the majority of our market in our particular area. There's some guys that have significantly larger work areas. There's some guys, down in the Texas area, the Dallas area of Texas. There's guys that have a 15-mile radius or something, just because traffic is so crazy and all that. But for us, it's a 45-minute drive time, and the reason why we do it drive time, not miles, is that really in our area, it's going to depend on the roads. So if you're on the highway, 45 minutes gets you pretty far down the road. But if we're traveling county roads and farm roads and, chip and seal roads, it's going to take us a little bit longer to get there. So 45-minute drive time is kind of where we're at. But you're right. The second question, does it depend on the job? It absolutely does. If someone out there says, hey, we need 600 feet of this 6-foot privacy fence installed, but, we're about an hour and a half away. Well, it still makes it worth it on our end. And it justifies the drive time, right? Because there's going to be extra cost associated with the drive time that we're going to have to build into the price of this fence. But we're spreading it over a larger amount of footage. If we were to try to take these same drive time costs and apply them, to a 50-foot job, it's going to seem significantly out of place. It's going to look like it's too much money for that project, more money than that project deserves. And they would probably be right. So 45 minutes is kind of where we're at. I love to be within 30 minutes, but there's a few communities that are right at that 30 to 45-minute commute that have sizable residential yards that we build fence in. Mr. Fence still in the house. Thank you, sir. Because sorry if it's already been asked, but how many crews does Ozark Fence typically run? Depends on the season, but typically 3. Typically we have a wood crew, which is typically residential. They'll do a little bit of commercial, but in our area, wood is typically residential. We have a second crew that is primarily commercial. They do a lot of chain link, 6-foot tall with 3 strands of barbed wire. We keep them pretty busy with all the commercial stuff. And then we've got a float crew that does, they do some residential chain link. They do ornamental iron and aluminum. They'll do some commercial temporary fence. They'll do some material delivery, that sort of thing. Kind of the filler, right? Kind of the what else do we have that's not residential wood and commercial chain link, and everything else gets handled by this third crew. I say it depends because, so the commercial crew is a subcontract crew. It's a family of fence guys. And it's fun because there's guys my age on this crew. They're a third generation. So the dad runs the crew. The sons work for him. Their granddad worked with them for a time. Still comes in and works with them sometimes. It really feels like me and my dad and my granddad's situation. If my granddad were still here. So, but anyway, I say they can also grow. So in the summertime, when there's larger projects, when there's more projects in general, they can generally bring on a few extra guys. They're usually cousins and such. And so they can go from 1 to 2 to 3 crews. But typically 3 is a good number for us. It's sustainable through the winter time, which is important. But we can sometimes scale that up to 4 or 5 crews in the summertime. Great question, Kevin. Dylan, lumber sales for 5 years, and most pine is treated MCA. Okay. The CCA is great, but it contains arsenic, so it's only used for water. It's supposed to not be able to touch, so no deck. Yeah, I had read that too, that CCA was, I had read that it was salt water only, but it could be any water. So MCA is interesting. So what we have, and this might be regionally too, so what we have access to here is primarily ACQ. Home Depot carries MCQ. MCQ being incredibly green color. Like it looks like a ripe or a pre-ripe banana. It looks like incredibly bright green, but it's interesting. So MCA is there. I'm guessing it's regional. So maybe I know you guys are down in the South, so that might be something for down there. Yeah, Fred, we're still live. Haven't got the, so those of you just joining, we're waiting to hear, So Mama Bear, we're expecting a little fence lady here just anytime. Well, technically, we're expecting her January 4th. But during a doctor's appointment this morning, the doctor said kind of, she could be here early. And she said if you'd had more than 6 or more contractions in an hour, you should give us a call. We'll probably have you come in and maybe talk about bringing the little fence lady in early. And she had 7 last. What time is it? So it is almost 4:00 here Central. And this conversation was going on about 2:45. So probably about an hour ago on whether or not she was going to the hospital or not. So let me do this while no updates. I wanted to check the live text because sometimes I don't get notifications. But as of right now, Fred, we are still live. But if I get the text from Mama Bear, we're going to shut this. I'm going to say goodbye. We're going to shut this down, and I'm going to haul over to the hospital. Did I miss part of this, Dan? Oh, okay. So this was a continuation. Used for water supposed to not be able to be touched, so no deck boards. There was a time in between that there's just rush treatment, and they have been rotting out in 5-10 years. So that's probably Dylan. What we're seeing right now is we're pulling out some treated pine that was installed 5 or 6 years ago that has just rotted. The posts are, I mean, it's time for them. This isn't, sometimes when we replace fences, we'll look at it and go, well, I mean, they want the fence replaced. We'll replace the fence. It's still in good condition, but what the customer wants, the customer wants. But the ones that we're replacing next week, it is time. The posts are rotted out to where they're starting to lean. It's starting to be a structural concern for this fence. It was installed about 5 or 6 years ago. So, but I don't know the treatment that was used in it. We didn't install the fence, but I would guess either ACQ or MCQ, which are the 2 most common in our area. What tools would you recommend for sealing or staining a fence? Oh, Martin. So, all right. And Martin, let me ask a follow-up question. Are you doing this on your fence at your house, or are you wanting to do this as a business? Are you wanting to start staining and sealing other people's fences for profit as a business, or is this your own? I'll give it a couple minutes. I'll circle back around this because the answer is 2 different answers, right? Yeah, let me know, and we'll circle back around. I'll keep an eye out for your comment. Fred Blake Spa, thanks, man. You're helping me through a really bad visual migraine. I appreciate that, Fred. I appreciate being able to help. I don't know. You're welcome, I guess. I don't take compliments very well. You guys should know this. So Fred, I'm going to say no thank you for tuning in. Thank you. I'm super excited. Now, this is kiddo number 3. It's not that I had to think about that. I'm just trying to think about how to phrase this. So this is kiddo number 3. I don't want it to sound like this is like old hat by this point because I am incredibly super excited. But at some point you kind of start knowing how the process goes. It seems like we always go to the hospital a couple times for false alarms. Usually end up sitting there for a couple hours and then get sent home. So I'm hoping that's what this is. Just because we're still a few weeks early. So while that wouldn't be the end of the world, I don't know. Probably ought to let things run their course. But yeah, thanks, Fred. I appreciate you. Is it more expensive to warm powder coat a wrought iron fence compared to painting? I don't know, Dan. In all honesty, I don't know. I don't know. We never have. So the steel that we bring in is pre-coated. And it's got the E-coat, so electrostatically powder coated. I don't know anyone in our area that does steel paint. The painting process, it always tends to need to be redone. No matter how well you clean the surface and prep it, whether media blaster and then clean or whatnot, get all the oils off. It seems like the paint just never sticks like it should. 5-6 years later, it's bubbling, cracking, peeling. And just in my experience, of course, that could be, it wasn't work that we've done. It's been work that we'd replaced. Yeah. So Dan, I don't know. Honestly, I would think that powder coating might be more expensive than painting. I don't know. I don't know if you could powder coat on site. So maybe I'm picturing this wrong. So what I'm thinking is you're talking about recoating a fence. I might be thinking about that absolutely incorrectly, though. I don't think you can powder coat on site. I honestly, I don't know. Yeah. Not endorsement, just got thirsty. All right. So Martin, let me scroll back up here to get the original question. Where did it go? It was just right here. There it is. What tools would you recommend for sealing or staining a fence? And then follows up with it's their own fence. So honestly, if it's your own fence and you're just doing it yourself, I would say just brush it. In all honesty, some guys will tell you can use a pump up sprayer, like a backpack sprayer or a 1 or 2 gallon pump up sprayer. You can. It is just a lot harder to control the overspray in that situation. So when we're talking about as a business, how we'd use an airless sprayer. So it does spray. There is still a concern for overspray, but the droplets are on such a smaller scale that they're not large droplets. So you're not seeing splatter on the side of a house. It's more like a mist that cleans up really easily. When we're talking about pump up sprayers, it is really easy to overspray that fence without even knowing it. It might feel like it's just a breezy day, but it carries it over to the neighbors, gets on their vinyl windows. So that's always where stain ends up finding itself, on vinyl windows. All the window, but the vinyl surrounds of the window. And it's, depending on the stain, it can be really hard to clean that up. And it is very noticeable with a pump up sprayer. I would recommend painting it. Is it going to take longer? Yes. Is it more of a pain? Sure. But you don't have to worry about overspray. If I were you, that's how I would do it. But if you guys are in here watching and have a suggestion, then I am absolutely all ears. I'd love to hear some different thoughts on that. What age did you start fence building? So it was in middle school. I want to say it was 7th grade. So it might have been 6th grade, honestly. So like that 13, 14 age range. I'll never forget it. It was like the first day of summer. School just got out. The last week of school, you and all your friends are making plans on what you're going to do on like that first day of freedom in summer. We're going to get on our bikes and we're going to ride them all over the neighborhood. We might ride them up to the gas station, which we weren't supposed to do, but we still did. Get a soda. Maybe if someone, gets an extra allowance, maybe we split some candy or something. Get really crazy with it. But we all made our first plans. And so until that first morning, my dad wakes me up, which is weird because my dad usually went to work before I got up. So that was strange until I realized it was still dark outside. And then he's like, all right, get up. You're coming to work with me. What? No, I'm not. I've got plans with my buddies. We're going to ride bicycles all over the neighborhood. It's going to be great. No, me and your mom talked about it, and you're going to come to work. I bought you some work gloves. They're in the truck. Go ahead and get on your jeans and boots and meet me out here in the dining room. We'll have some breakfast, and we're going to work. But my friends, I was going to go play with my friends. I had plans. Like, don't worry about it. They'll still be here when we get home. I promise. Yeah. So first day of summer, that was an eye-opening experience. But did I appreciate it at the time? No. Do I appreciate it now? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it kind of teaches you that, and listen, all through high school, it was this way. Every summer I was working, I was building fence of some sort, whether, so it started out in middle school. I cleaned up the yard a lot, cleaned up trash a lot. And then I pre-stage orders sometimes. And then I started in the gate building. This was before we had a welder. So it was all it's all just cut and fit, right, with aluminum corners. So I did that for a while. And then in probably 8th grade, I started out, and then I got not started out, but I got advanced to the set crew. I set for a few summers. And then I was on the finish crew, where at the time we had different set crews and finish crews. Now one crew does it all for each type of fence. But so then anyway, great question. 13, 14, thereabouts. Oh, I think where I was going with that was I worked every summer, throughout high school, and man, was that the pits. right? Because all my friends were going here and going there, and we're only about 45 minutes from a pretty good sized lake. So they'd always go to the lake, and if I wanted to meet up with them, I'd have to leave after work, but I had to come back home that night because I had to work the next day. And anyway, hey mate, just bought a new fence, fell over. What do I do, mate? Well, that's going to depend on why it fell over. What happened? Did If it fell over, maybe the posts weren't deep enough? Is a question, or maybe there wasn't concrete. But there's that whole discussion on driven post versus concrete. I don't know what went wrong. Why did it fall over? We need more information. You seen you seen Dietz 2 recently? He's a cool guy. I don't know. I don't know who these two is. It sounds like a setup to a joke, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm falling for it. I don't know who that is. Who is it? I don't know what this means. All right. So Pro Builder asked, do you put gravel at the bottom of each post hole for drainage? No, we don't. Because I mean, I understand the thought. I really do. But we don't. It only invite in our area, the water table can rise pretty quickly. And so, after a heavy rain or whatnot. So I think what you're talking about is I've seen it performed where the gravel goes in the bottom, the post goes on the gravel, then concrete's poured around it to where it leaves the bottom. That way it leaves the bottom of the post exposed to the gravel so that water can drain through the post, out the gravel and out. We don't. And the reason being is because then it also lets water come up. It lets it, wick water up into that post. I'm not a big fan of the idea. Now, listen, is concrete permeable? Will water come in? Sure. But I'd rather seal it up with concrete, knowing that, yes, water will come through, but not the same rate that if I left it exposed just to gravel. One guy's opinion. There are multiple ways of doing it. But when you ask me what I do, we do not put concrete at the bottom. All right. Trying to maybe scroll through these a little bit. Bo Butler asks, are you and Sean going to be at Fence Tech? I'd love to thank you two in person for how much you have helped me in the last couple of months. We are. So I am. And actually, so Sean was in last week's live. I appreciate all you guys showing up every week. And so Sean's planning on being there as well. I'd love to actually sit down with Sean. And I've never met Sean in person. That's the craziest thing. I feel like I know him, through watching his YouTube content and his Facebook content, talking to him on the phone, that sort of thing. I'd like to meet him in person and tell him thank you as well. I learned quite a lot from him. But yeah, so what I'd like to do is get us together. I'd like to do a meetup as long as all the rules are followed, proper distancing and protocols, etc. I think a meetup would be fun. If we try to schedule something, whether in a lobby or a bar or whatever works for the current situation when we get there, I think a meetup would be a lot of fun. But to answer your question, Bo, yep, we will both be there. Martin asks, how deep do you dig for Postmaster posts, and about how many bags of concrete do you use per post? We dig between 24 and 30 inches. 30 inches is ASTM standard. Sometimes we don't get all the way to 30 inches. 24-inch minimum is kind of where we set our standard, 24 to 30 inch. And then we'll use 2 bags of concrete, so 160 pounds of concrete. Of course, that's, we use a 10-inch auger. The hole usually wallows out to about 12 inches. So 2 bags of concrete, 160 pounds. If the hole is only 24 inches, sometimes it won't hold the full 2 bags. So maybe a bag and a half puts you at, and that's where you'd ask about Postmaster. So I was talking about gate posts. So fence post, a bag and a half. So, 120 pounds. 80 plus 40 is 120. Bag and a half. So gate post, 2 bags. Do you have an on-site minimum charge for maybe small repairs or small post installation jobs? Absolutely, Brian. part of running this as a business is knowing exactly where your numbers are. And we know it costs $750 to roll a truck out to a job. Now that's the truck, trailer, equipment, and 3 guys. Does your project or any $750 project a minimum? Does it need the trailer and equipment? Maybe not, but that truck rolls with every truck rolls with a trailer and equipment on it because the next job might need it, right? So we know it costs $750 to run that whole ensemble. And we hear this a lot. $750, that's quite a lot if you're just replacing 2 posts. I agree. We're probably not a great fit for that project. But for me to roll out the truck, trailer, piece of equipment, 3 guys, $750. And that's for everything up to and including, $750 worth of work. So, it could be 2 posts, it could be 7 posts. It's $750 to roll the guys out to that project. And that's during the off season. During peak season, that bumps up to $1,000 just because we also try to calculate in the cost of lost work, right? So what work are we not able to perform, or how much further behind does that put our schedule by taking on this smaller project? We've calculated out this past spring, that it was roughly about $1,000. So you had $750 worth of minimum charge and about $250 worth of lost costs, lost project costs. Great question. Bo says, great. I'll find you. I'm sure you won't be hard to spot in the crowd. Absolutely right. I think a meet and greet would be a great idea. Bo, I'm absolutely with you on that one. So we'll talk about it more as it gets closer. When I say it gets closer, February is more or less right around the corner at this point. But yeah, we'll talk about more on this channel, probably in the community post. Also, I've got a Facebook page, a public Facebook page for this channel. Is facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. And we'll probably post some content up there too. But yeah, we'll host a meet and greet. And I think it'd be a great time. Martin says, what size screws do you use to screw 2x4s to Postmaster posts? They are 1.5 inches. So they're 1.5 inches. So we were using 2-inch screws. But the thing is, so a 2x4 is 1.5 inches by 3.5, right? So it's never 2 and it's never 4. Now the Postmaster post takes up a bit of space, so you can use 1.5 inch screw, still get all the 2x4 you can, but not go all the way through the 2x4. A 2-inch screw pokes through the end of a 2x4. So we learned that lesson the hard way when we were first using Postmaster post, and so on the first job we got to stop and go resupply screws with shorter screws. 1.5 inch screws is the way to go for us. All right, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. Let's check for an update from Mama Bear. Do not see an update from Mama Bear. Let me check YouTube video details. So what, just kind of the nerdy part of this whole thing. So right now you're watching me on YouTube, but I'm actually using a program called StreamYard, which StreamYard basically lets me click on comments and bring them up on the screen so that once this recording is done, YouTube will repost this content as pre-recorded live content. The problem is it takes a lot of the comments away. Not all of them, it seems like, but pretty regularly it'll take some of the comments away. StreamYard lets me throw these up here so that we're recording it, so that the comments I'm talking about are on screen when I'm talking about it. The problem is it doesn't show me the video analytics on the YouTube side. So, which basically is, basically super chats, that sort of thing. It doesn't show me any of that, which we found out today that we're eligible for super chats and all that. But to do that, we need to go into YouTube. So we're going to do that right now. I say we, like I've got a mouse in my pocket or something, but just me here right now. Probably should have had this loaded up. That would have been a great idea. If you guys have any more questions, drop them in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer all of your questions. Your activity. Okay. Yep, we're good to go there. Very cool. So right now you guys are about on a 20-second delay, it looks like. So from when I say this, it takes about 20 seconds for you guys to hear it and comment back. So that's always weird. You know, that's low latency, I guess. You can do ultra low latency, but that the bandwidth gets really screwy on that. All right, back to StreamYard. Dan Hardman says, for a 6-foot iron fence, should I bury 1 foot or 2 foot of the post to make it sturdy, strong? 2 foot minimum is kind of our standard. So we talked about that actually a minute ago, in that 30 inches is the ASTM standard. 24 inch would be a minimum for me, especially on 6 foot tall. On 4 foot tall, yeah, we can have the conversation on 30 inch maybe being overkill on a 4 foot fence. I'll probably be on board with that. I think 2 foot's a fine minimum, especially on 4 foot tall. But on 6 foot tall, it's absolutely a minimum at 24 inches. 12 inches would lead to that fence falling over, I would think. Yeah. Sean, I'm all over this. Video conference and tape it. I absolutely agree. You know what we could do is we could do a live like I did with Tony, where so basically like the nerdy part of this whole thing is I could send you a link through StreamYard and we could bring you on. I don't think it's going to do it. I'll click on it. No, I'm the only person here. So, but when I did Tony, basically it's the same setup, only I could split the screen in half and then you'd be on one side, I'd be on the other side. We could absolutely do that. And that way it's taped for the YouTube folks that aren't able to join us. I think that would be really cool. And we could use on each other's channel, of course. I think that would be a great idea. I'm looking forward to this. I really am. You know, I think there's going to be a tremendous group at FenceTech this year. I think it's going to happen. I mean, Tony is passionate about making this happen. I think it needs to happen. As long as protocols are followed, everyone's safe, et cetera, and onward. I think it needs to happen. I really do. I think a lot of people need to get back to normalcy. You know, I had a couple conferences early this year. Actually, I had one that conflicted with FenceTech this year. I wasn't able to go to FenceTech this year. And that was actually the last conference that I was at. Usually I'll go to a few training conferences, seminars throughout the year just to try to keep my education current. You know, whether it's Fence is usually in the spring at FenceTech, or I do a lot on social media, right? A lot of training on social media because social media can change daily. Like, for example, this morning I woke up to a text from a friend saying, hey, you should check your YouTube channel. So it used to be membership. So, you know, a lot of channels when you're watching, there'll be the subscribe button. The next to that will be the join button. They have memberships. So you can join their membership, and it's for, you know, a variety of different cost points. $4.99 seems to be pretty consistent, but you can become a member of that channel and receive perks. So whether it's icons next to your name, special emojis you can use, that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. I'm a member of Roger Wakefield. Like I said, if you guys don't follow Roger Wakefield, you should definitely check him out. He's the expert plumber. This guy knows plumbing for sure. He hosts a weekly live on Mondays where he talks talk poop with the plumber, that sort of thing. Anyway, so I follow him. I'm a member there, so I get a little icon next to my name. I can use special emojis, and he actually does. So his live is from 3 to 5:30 on Mondays, and the last hour, so from 4:30 to 5:30, it's members only chat. So if now his chat is filled with, you know, I mean, great questions, great content, sure, but it's a lot to keep up with, right? So the member only chat lets you, if you've had a question that you've been trying to get answered for a little while, but it keeps getting scrolled past, it gives you a chance or a time to ask your question. So anyway, so you said you should check your channel. I think it used to be your channel had to have, I think it was like 25,000. I'm pretty sure it's 25,000 subscribers to even be eligible. Well, we're obviously not there yet. We're at 12,100 maybe. Let's see. Let's get an update there. See if we can't. Yeah, about 12,130 or something like that. So we obviously weren't eligible until this morning when I got this. I jumped into my YouTube studio, and sure enough, it's got a button where I can turn it on. So that's incredibly interesting. Same thing with Super Chats. So the way Super Chats work is you guys can, and again, it's a variety of different ranges. You guys can add money to a chat, and it changes the color, and it actually plays a special sound on my end and shows the comment a little bit differently. It makes it a different color on your guys' end. It highlights a little bit. Those are enabled too, so that's kind of new. But yeah, so the point being, the social media changes daily almost. So I typically go to several conferences throughout the year for social media. This year, they've all been canceled, including Social Media Marketing World, which is my favorite one of the entire year. Typically held in February, they went ahead and pre-canceled it. Actually, they didn't cancel it; they rescheduled it to 2022. Okay, same difference, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Brian, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you coming in. Here's the great thing about doing these Ask Me Anythings for 2.5 hours. I don't expect anyone to stay for 2.5 hours. I expect you guys to kind of come and go as you can. Everyone's busy. Everyone has lives that take time, that sort of thing. And I absolutely understand. Everyone's got their own thing going. So the nice thing about being here for 2.5 hours is so that hopefully I catch you at some point in time that's convenient for you to come in and say hi and ask a few fence questions. Let's see. Let's check for any updates from Mama Bear. No updates. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, be sure to ask them. I think we're pretty caught up on questions, comments, or otherwise. Let me scroll back up. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. There's a little bit of hijinks in here for a little bit, so I'm going to scroll right past that. Let's see. Nope, I think we're pretty much caught up. So if you guys have questions, comments, or otherwise, drop them in the chat below, in the comments below. We'll be sure to answer them. If not, we've got some pretty big, exciting news coming up, and it affects this channel and my business and everything all together. Let's just go ahead and get into it. And then if you guys do have comments, drop them in or questions, comments, drop them in comments below. I'll answer them in a minute. So I've been waiting to talk about this for a while because I wasn't sure. I wanted to wait till all the stars aligned, right? Because if one thing got off, I don't want to have to come back and say, well, it didn't happen. So we put an off. So for the last, I don't know, since probably the mid 90s, we've been in the office building that we're in now. And the shop building we've had since, I think Grandpa moved into there in the late 70s, early 80s. We've been in our present location for quite a while. The office building that we're in, we've been in since the mid 90s. And I say we, that's when I was out installing fence, and it was just my granddad and my dad. So prior to him building this office, our office was a house. It just happened to be the house that was on the lot, right? It had gotten older and started being more costly to maintain and keep up to date. So my granddad built us an office. Well, when he built the office, it was him and my dad. So this office is built for two people. I mean, I want to say it's 20 by 30. It's not very big, but for two people, it's not a bad size, right? Well, fast forward to today, and we've got 4 people crammed in this place. We've got me and my dad, and my sister. My dad runs our commercial division. My sister runs our residential division. We typically have an administrative assistant that answers phones, also helps with retail sales. We sell quite a bit of materials, retail and wholesale. So she handles that typically. But it's a tight fit. And it's been a tight fit for quite a while. But the problem is, how do you expand, right? Do you find a new place at somewhere else and then try to figure out the logistics of moving all your stuff, all your inventory and office and everything, and then try to tell people that you've moved and hope that they'll find you when you move? It's a lot. So we put it off. But in the last 4 years, we've been seeing some pretty significant growth, 30 to 40% year on year. We are significantly larger as a company than we were 4 years ago, but we haven't grown in space. So between the office and the shop, we're roughly at about 1,400 square feet. It's tight. And everyone knows everybody's business. So if you want to have a private conversation, a private phone call, you got to go sit out in your vehicle. And that's not fun. No one likes that. So, but about 6 months ago, a neighbor came over that owns. I want to say it's a complex of buildings. That makes it sound larger than it is. I'm sure it's a group of like 5 buildings. Came over, said, Joe, I'm going to sell these buildings. I'm going to sell my property here. He owns several companies. He's consolidating them at a different location. So I'm going to sell this. I want to sell it to you. So I knew your grandpa. I know his legacy is important to you guys. I'd like you to buy it. I said, well, that's interesting. Let's walk through it. Let's see. So we walked it and we talked and kind of hemmed and hawed, went back and forth. But one thing led to another, made an offer that was accepted. So then we went under contract on this building. But buying a commercial property is not nearly like buying a house, a residential property. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more due diligence, and the SBA guaranteed part of the loan. So the SBA wanted an environmental survey. Well, so they asked for an environmental assessment. Well, back in the 50s and 57, there was a filling station on one of the lots that's part of this overall parcel. One of the buildings had a filling station or something. So nothing doing. Everyone had to stop and wait, and they had called for an environmental survey, which just meant they took soil samples from a couple places throughout the property. And then the on-site environmental guy says, I don't see any problems here, but I have to send it off to Kansas City to their labs. And then they have to okay it. Well, that was a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. And they said, well, it'll take a few weeks, but with the holiday, there's no telling. Okay. Well, so in the meantime, we came to an agreement. The financing was secured and all that. So we'd been doing some homework or some pre-work on this, the title work and etc. So anyway, Monday, we get the call that we're cleared to close. They said that the environmental survey came back clear and fine. There's nothing, there's no environmental impact, concerns or anything like that. Basically what they're looking for was, is there any leaked, fuel in the ground that needs to be remediated? Soil's clear. So we're cleared to close, and we close, I'm saying we're Monday. So we're a little bit ahead of the ball. But Monday we close on this building. The exciting thing is, the office is significantly larger. So my dad and my sister and myself, we all get offices now, so we can close the door and have private conversations. So that's always nice. But it has a caretaker's quarters, which on any other property could be called an apartment. But on this property, it's a commercially zoned property. So it is not an apartment. It is caretaker's quarters. But they're large enough for a YouTube studio. So the what was the like living space, or I'm not sure how this place was set up, but we're going to turn it into a YouTube studio. So what you guys see right here, this office, I lease it. And so it's just it's literally, I don't know, 10 by 12 office room that we've put some lights up, we've put backdrop up and some sound conditioning around, and we've turned it into a video studio. And we've been here for, I don't know, 3 years or something. This is where we also record content for the Ozark Fence. I was recording content there for their Facebook page, the YouTube page for Ozark Fence, that sort of stuff. And then recently, this YouTube channel has also been recording their content here, our content here. So we're going to have a space dedicated for YouTube, and it feels really good. So that's coming up. So you guys will start seeing a little bit more content about that space. It needs some work. So there's no doubt about it. We're not moving in there immediately. The production side will probably move over there. So it's got a larger shop for fabricating gates. Right now, our cantilever gate, we're capped at about 30 or 32 foot cantilever gate is about the longest we can do. And the commercial fencers out there know that 32 foot gate, you can't do just a whole lot with it. So really need to have some more capacity. So the larger shop can make larger gates. We'll be moving those guys over as soon as we get, we need 220 power for the welding machines, the Miller-Matics. But once that gets in, we'll start moving that over. But the office, we'll need to do some office remodeling. We'll need to do networking. There's no networking in this building. So for like right now, to talk to you guys, we've got my computer. We've got the audio coming into the computer. We have the video coming down into the computer. The computer is then routed through the network onto the internet, and it comes to you all live. Well, this building doesn't have any networking, so it doesn't have any internet. So this whole conversation can't happen until that gets done. So you guys will be seeing more content. So what I'm thinking is to do a video. I was thinking about a series of videos, but then I think we'll probably actually just do one big video on a like YouTube studio remodel or something like that. Like kind of bring you guys behind the scenes on what it takes to take this place from a caretaker's quarters, if you will, to a YouTube studio, like a behind the scene tours of what goes on in there, behind the scene look into what goes on. So that's our huge announcement that I'm incredibly proud of and I'm so happy about. But yeah. Let me go back up here. Jacob says, did y'all get any of the snow that we got in Oklahoma? Yep. We got some snow yesterday morning and overnight, the night previous to yesterday morning. We got a fair amount of snow in. I mean, I say fair. No, not a fair amount. It stuck. I made roads slippery. I mean, they called it trace amounts. I think some areas got 1 inch or something like that. Now, south of us, so around the Branson, Table Rock Lake area, they got several inches of snow down there. So they got a little bit more. We got just enough to make everything slippery, make everyone drive about 10 miles an hour. And then yesterday it warmed up to a balmy 40 some odd, 43, 44 degrees. I melted a little bit. The refroze overnight. So salt trucks came back out. And then today it finished melting it off. So we got a little bit of the snow, Jacob. Yep. Not nearly like what you guys have been getting. I've been seeing pictures from guys, some fence guys I'm friends with, like in the OKC area, Tulsa, Broken Arrow, that you guys have been getting a bit more snow than we have so far this year. Should wood fence pickets be tight together when being installed or have a slight gap between? So I saw this comment, and it might have been yours on one of the videos. So you always butt the pickets together. You always make them, tight together, knowing that as they dry, they will gap. Cedar, not as much as treated pine. Typically, you'll see cedar pickets. We say 8 to a quarter inch gap is pretty normal on a cedar picket. Treated pine can be up to a half inch or more. But you always install those, butted up together, nice and tight, and then as they dry, they'll separate. I mean, I guess if you came across existing board now, I really don't see any problem with putting them up tight. What I was going to say is if you had a board that was completely dry, you might want to gap it in case that in event that it got wet, like it rained and it swelled. I don't know that I've ever seen that be a problem. I don't think I've seen anything like that. So put them nice and tight together. And that way, even if they're nice and dry, they'll stay nice and tight. They won't have that 8-inch gap or quarter-inch gap to them. Great question. Pro Builder's been bringing up some great questions today. Thank you. I appreciate the content suggestions. Can you recommend a nail gun for a homeowner to use to nail pickets? I would say, Martin, I'd say reach out to your local rental shop. So, in our area, it's called Superior Rents, or there's also there's Handyman Rentals. Whatever your local rental shop is, there's usually several. See if they rent one out. I would hate to see you go buy one. They could be for a good nail gun that's not going to jam. It's not going to give you consistent problems. They're going to be a little spendy. I mean, it's a whole quality, the cost of quality conversation, right? You also have the air compressor, the air hose that goes with it, the oils and everything like that. I would suggest reaching out to your rental shop and seeing what they offer. A lot of them will offer a coil nail gun, and they'll combo it together with the hose and the compressor. They'll probably even oil it for you. That way you don't even have to worry about oiling the thing. All you have to do is buy the nails. They typically also sell the nails, or you can likely find nails at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards. Yeah, we like Hitachi as a company, and I think Hitachi is actually rebranded now. I think I got a message about that a little while ago that the Hitachi brand is rebranding their nail gun line. I'll have to look that up again before I say that for sure. Oh, okay. Mama Bear's calling me. I'm going to mute you guys really quick just for privacy concerns, and I'll come right back. All right, so we're going to start wrapping this up because Mama Bear says that the doctor called back and said that we'd better go to the hospital because it might be time for the little fence lady to show up. Well, she said be home about half an hour. So we've got a few comments and questions in here. I'm going to answer them as quickly as I can because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. And then we will do that. Then we'll head to the hospital. Okay. What's up, Rami? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Southeast Wisconsin. So welcome. So actually, we have family in Wisconsin. So my wife's brother lives in Kenosha. So just over the line from Chicago. Yeah, right. So we go up to the Kenosha area about once a year in the summertime, racing and all that. So welcome, Rami or Rami. Are 4-foot driven steel posts good enough? My question would be good enough for what? For a 6-foot fence. Yeah, typically. So it's going to depend on soil quality, but I mean, that's quite a bit of posts. I think you would be fine there. Reach out to a few fence companies. Usually fence guys will be pretty open about asking them, say, hey, if you drive fence posts, how deep do you typically drive them for a 6-foot fence? But yeah. What is up, Fence King? What is up? What is up? All right. Pro Builder, you're welcome, bud. I appreciate you. I guess I assume you're a bud. Maybe not. I appreciate all the great questions. I do. I appreciate that. Oh, check that out. I'm actually in Kenosha. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, guys, yeah. So typically this is supposed to go to 5:30, which is like, another hour. But part of that conversation with Mama Bear was, so like how quickly is this happening? Can I wrap this up at 5:30? And she said, well, you could do what you want, but I'm going to the hospital as soon as we've got someone coming over to watch the kiddos. So she said, as soon as they get here, I'm going with or without you. So I think that was the wrap it up sign. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up a little bit early. Scout, you're very welcome. I like that. Scouts Outdoor Services, SOS. Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rami, thank you. Guys, appreciate you sticking with me. I apologize for cutting this short. For those of you that are just joining us, I apologize. Usually I stick around to 5:30, but we might have a new fence baby. So new member to the fence fam. Yeah. So for now, guys, thank you. Appreciate you coming. Yeah, a little scatterbrained at the moment. But so what do I usually say? I was like, yeah, if you do have a comment, question, concern, etc. after this, if you're watching this on replay, drop it in the comments below. I always watch these comments even after the video has been produced to come up with content for next week's Ask a Fence Guy, or not Ask a Fence Guy, Ask Me Anything. I also host a Facebook Live. I used to host a Facebook Live on my personal company page called Ask a Fence Guy Friday, but that's not what this is. This is Ask Me Anything, live Q&A. Drop a comment below. I'd be glad to help you guys however I can. But if not, I will see you guys next Wednesday. We have pre-recorded content that comes out every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I will be coming to you guys live. Well, I'll probably be coming to you guys live next Thursday. Probably going to depend on the new baby situation. I'll let you guys know. Keep an eye out on the communities tab. I'll keep you guys updated there. But yeah, for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you guys later.